So, Jessica Yellen, watching this from the White House as we await the president, I want to give you a couple of statements that we got up on Capitol Hill. These from Senator Reid and Senator McConnell, the respectively majority and minority leaders in the Senate, the two men who are going to be talking over the next 24 hours to try to fix this fiscal cliff thing. Here's what they had to say.
We had a long meeting in the White House. It was very constructive. We hope that it will bear fruit, but that is what we've hoped a lot. I think that the next 24 hours will be very instructive as what we're able to accomplish.
Was there progress? Discussion of a concrete proposal?
We talked about a lot of things. There's no concrete proposal at this time. We have a number of different directions we're going to try to take, and we're going to see what can be worked out.
Are you going to
the White House, we are engaged in discussions, the Majority Leader, myself, and the White House, in the hopes that we can come forward as early as Sunday and have a recommendation that I can make to my conference and the Majority Leader can make to his conference. And so we'll be working hard to try to see if we can get there in the next 24 hours. And so I'm hopeful and optimistic.
Wow, hopeful and optimistic. That sounds pretty good. I have standing by with me here waiting for the president's version of what went on in that meeting, our chief White House correspondent, Jessica Yellen, and CNN Radio Capitol Hill correspondent, Lisa Desjardins. Jessica, first to you. Honestly, I thought this was the most, they're not calling each other names, which yesterday was going on. And, you know, optimistic and hopeful sounds about as good as it's gotten.
Yeah, there are more positive noises coming from all sides right now, and we are all looking for tea leaves to read, so that is encouraging. But I don't know, given the amount of time left and the pressures on every party involved, if positive and hopeful is enough at this time.
It may not get us there.
It might not get us there. I will also add that some Republicans are insisting that there was never a discussion of this $250,000 or proposal coming to the floor. There's a dispute over that, so maybe the president will clarify that in his remarks. Not surprising that not all sides agreed to even what happened in a meeting, Candy.
No, we shouldn't be surprised by that. Lisa, let me bring you back in. From the point of view on Capitol Hill, what do we look for next? I mean, these two men, obviously they don't have to be in the same room, but it kind of for the next 24 hours, we're sort of at a standstill here.
Right. I think what we're going to be looking for, at least what my life is probably going to be like in the next day, will be standing outside of doorways, seeing who's going to whose offices, making a lot of phone calls, seeing if these two leaders are meeting in person, over the phone. I think we're going to be waiting until, just a guess here, Candy, of course, Sunday morning until we see the full presentation of something. When he's speaking on the floor, Leader McConnell said the earliest that he thinks they could present something is Sunday. And of course, as I reported, we don't expect the Senate to necessarily be in session tomorrow. The senators may have the day off, except for the two working on this deal. So I think we're going to try, everyone will be fighting furiously to get all details. We'll put in all the calls we can to our sources. But with this, just these two men and their staff trying to work this out for the time being, we may not get any details of an emerging deal until as soon as Sunday.
So there still is time, Jessica, for this, but it cannot be and will not be that kind of mega deal that everybody thought might be possible months ago.
No, that's right, Candy, and that's a big disappointment here at the White House and on Capitol Hill. It will not, even if they get this done, it will not include broad tax reform. It will not include measures to bring down the deficit over the next 10 years. What any smaller deal at this point would include, is some way to extend low tax rates for middle-income Americans. At the White House's insistence, it would include a way to extend unemployment benefits, perhaps at Republicans' insistence, some way to keep down estate tax rates, and then other more sort of in-the-weeds issues that involve how doctors who accept Medicare are paid and patches in the tax code. We would have to put off to another day the biggest issues of tax reform and deficit reduction, Candy.
Yeah, the so-called doc fix is certainly one of those things important in the medical community and important to patients who are on Medicare because it involves how much money the doctor doctors actually get for treating a patient. Lisa, let me bring you in. We should say we expect to see the president in less than a minute. But Lisa, the other thing that can't be in this is anything about entitlements. And that's the huge issue for Republicans.
Right. We had just a news conference today. The only Republicans that came to the mic today came to the microphone to talk about entitlements here on the Senate side, about Medicare. They see that as the gaping hole in the United States budget, and many of them are frustrated that so far there really has not been any specific plan from the White House to try and deal with it. Also remember, Candy, unemployment benefits run out tomorrow, so the fiscal cliff actually starts tonight.
And Jessica, there was an interesting statement put out recently by a Republican thinker who said that he thinks the president actually has played, and speaking of the president, there he is.
Good afternoon, everybody. For the past couple of months, I've been working with leaders of both parties to try and forge an agreement that would grow our economy and shrink the deficit. A balanced plan that would cut spending in a responsible way, but also ask the wealthiest Americans to pay a little more. And above all, protect our middle class and everybody who's striving to get into the middle class. I still want to get this done. It's the right thing to do for our families, for our businesses, and for our entire economy. But the hour for immediate action is here. It is now. We're now at the point where in just 4 days, every American's tax rates are scheduled to go up by law. Every American's paycheck will get considerably smaller. And that would be the wrong thing to do for our economy. It would be bad for middle-class families, and it would be bad for businesses that depend on family spending. Fortunately, Congress can prevent it from happening if they act right now. I just had a good and constructive discussion here at the White House with Senate and House leadership about how to prevent this tax hike on the middle class. And I'm optimistic we may still be able to reach an agreement that can pass both houses in time. Senators Reid and McConnell are working on such an agreement as we speak. But if an agreement isn't reached in time between Senator Reid and Senator McConnell, then I will urge Senator Reid to bring to the floor a basic package for an up or down vote. One that protects the middle class from an income tax hike, extends the vital lifeline of unemployment insurance to 2 million Americans looking for a job, and lays the groundwork for future cooperation on more economic growth and deficit reduction. Guys, I can hear you over here. I believe such a proposal could pass both houses with bipartisan majorities, as long as those leaders allow it to actually come to a vote. If members of the House or the Senate want to vote no, they can. But we should let everybody vote. That's the way this is supposed to work. If you can get a majority in the House and you can get a majority in the Senate, then we should be able to pass a bill. So the American people are watching what we do here. Obviously, their patience is already thin. This is deja vu all over again. America wonders why it is that in this town, for some reason, you can't get stuff done in an organized timetable. Why everything always has to wait till the last minute. Well, we're now at the last minute. And the American people are not going to have any patience for a politically self-inflicted wound to our economy. Not right now. The economy is growing, but sustaining that trend is going to require elected officials to do their jobs. The housing market is recovering, but that could be impacted if folks are seeing smaller paychecks. The unemployment rate is the lowest it's been since 2008. But already you're seeing businesses and consumers starting to hold back because of the dysfunction that they see in Washington. Economists, business leaders, all think that we're poised to grow in 2013, as long as politics in Washington don't get in the way of America's progress. So we've got to get this done. I just want to repeat, we had a constructive meeting today. Senators Reid and McConnell are discussing a potential agreement where we can get a bipartisan bill out of the Senate, over to the House, and done in a timely fashion so that we met the December 31st deadline. But given how things have been working in this town, we always have to wait and see until it actually happens. The one thing the American people should not have to wait and see is some sort of action. So if we don't see an agreement between the two leaders in the Senate, I expect a bill to go on the floor, and I've asked Senator Reid to do this, put a bill on the floor that makes sure that taxes on middle-class families don't go up, that unemployment insurance is still available for 2 million people, and that lays the groundwork then for additional deficit reduction and economic growth steps that we can take in the new year. But let's not miss this deadline. That's the bare minimum that we should be able to get done. And it shouldn't be that hard, since Democrats and Republicans both say they don't want to see taxes go up on middle-class families. And I just have to repeat, outside of Washington, nobody understands how it is that this seems to be a repeat pattern over and over again. Ordinary folks, they do their jobs. They meet deadlines. They sit down and they discuss things, and then things happen. If there are disagreements, they sort through the disagreements. The notion that our elected leadership can't do the same thing is mind-boggling to them. It needs to stop. So I'm modestly optimistic that an agreement can be achieved. Nobody's going to get 100% of what they want, but let's make sure that middle-class families and the American economy, and in fact the world economy, aren't adversely impacted because people can't do their jobs. All right? Thank you very much, everybody.
What's your threshold for income?
Take on what went on, modestly optimistic after constructive talks. I believe that was those are the quotes I have with me. Ron Brownstein, CNN contributor. You know, Ron, it's not how it works in Washington, right. The straight up or down vote.
Right.
And when he said, well, straight up and down vote, that's how it should work, but it's not how it works in Washington.
And it hasn't for a long time.
Right.
I mean, and look, there are two separate things here. There's the filibuster in the Senate, but what is even a bigger obstacle is what is known informally as the Hastert rule in the House, which says that the majority party will not bring a bill to the floor unless it has support from a majority of the majority. And it has always been hard to see, Candy, a bill that a majority of House Republicans would vote for that would be acceptable to President Obama. So in many ways, I have felt for really months that the only two choices were going over the cliff or abandoning that Hastert rule, and John Boehner being willing to bring up a bill that would pass primarily with Democratic votes and would be opposed by a majority of Republicans. Still not sure he's there, but it did sound, you know, a little more optimistic on the relative gauge that we have than we've seen in the last couple of weeks.
So the next step, they're going to, I mean, they're now running out of venues to discuss this. They've discussed it at the White House. They've tried to get a deal between Speaker Boehner and and President Obama. Now it's gone to the Senate, and we're going to see Harry Reid and Mitch McConnell try to work something out. And after that, they have run out of both time and places to go for a deal.
Right. And look, I mean, you know, most of the time when there's stalemate, it probably is tougher for the Democrats than Republicans, because Democrats are the party of activist government. They want things to happen. When things don't happen, they're kind of the loser. In this case, it is hard to see how the Republicans are better off after the cliff if we go over.
We're going to have more right after a quick break.